Maid's daughter saved a billionaire's life mid-flight. What he whispered back made everyone cry. Hello everyone. Before we begin today's story, I have a small favor to ask. Please hit subscribe and turn on the notification bell so you never miss our channel's new videos. It's quick, free, and the best way to support us in bringing you more dramatic stories. Your support means the world to us. Where are you watching from? Drop your city or country in the comments below. Thank you very much. Now, let's get into today's incredible story. The private jet was soaring high above the clouds, traveling at nearly 600 miles per hour, with a smooth, yet unwavering course. It was the kind of flight where everything seemed too perfect: sleek leather seats, crystal clear windows, and the hum of quiet conversation in the background. In the front of the jet, the billionaire was seated, reviewing papers for his multi-billion-dollar business deal. He was a man who had everything, a man who owned companies, properties, and power. But that day, something he couldn't control, something completely outside his grasp, was about to change everything. The air around him grew thin as his breath became more labored. It started as a slight discomfort in his chest, then escalated to a sharp, crushing pain. His heart began to race uncontrollably. He reached for the call button, but his hand was trembling. Panic set in. The flight attendants were already running toward him, their faces pale as they saw the billionaire clutching his chest. But there was no time for an ambulance or medical professionals. They were in the sky, hundreds of miles away from the nearest hospital. This was it. He was fading fast, and no one knew what to do. At the back of the jet, the young girl who had been quietly sitting by the galley watching cartoons was oblivious to the chaos unfolding. She was the maid's daughter, an ordinary girl in an extraordinary situation. Her mother had been employed as a cleaning staff on the billionaire's private jet, and the girl was only there because her mother had no one to look after her. The little girl was often overlooked by the elite passengers around her. She was the invisible child, the one who fetched drinks and cleaned up, her presence hardly acknowledged. But in that moment, something deep within her stirred. She had grown up in a household where health emergencies were frequent. Her mother had worked multiple jobs to support them, often coming home exhausted, but teaching her everything she could about health and first aid. It was a skill born from necessity. As the flight attendants shouted for help, the little girl's instincts kicked in. She had learned how to handle emergencies, and the lessons were about to prove invaluable. She quickly rushed over to the scene, her small hands steady despite the panic unfolding around her. She pushed past the attendants who were frozen, unsure of what to do. The billionaire's face was pale, his eyes wide with fear. But the girl didn't hesitate. She knew exactly what needed to be done. With remarkable calmness for her age, she instructed one of the attendants to grab the oxygen mask, while she pressed gently but firmly on the billionaire's chest to stabilize his heartbeat. The atmosphere in the cabin was heavy, and for a moment, time seemed to slow down. The billionaire's labored breathing steadied, and the pain in his chest began to subside. It was nothing short of a miracle. The passengers, who had been watching in confusion, were left speechless. The billionaire, now breathing more easily, opened his eyes and looked directly at the young girl. His voice was hoarse as he whispered, "Thank you. You've saved my life." His words hung in the air, and in that moment, every person on the jet understood the weight of what had just transpired. The young girl had done what no one else could. She had saved the billionaire's life with her knowledge, her calmness, and her courage. As the jet continued its journey through the clouds, the passengers remained quiet, their eyes occasionally glancing at the girl who had proven that true greatness doesn't always come in the form of wealth or power. Sometimes, it comes in the form of a child's knowledge and bravery. The flight attendants quickly adjusted the billionaire's seat, making him as comfortable as possible given the circumstances. He looked at the young girl, who was standing quietly by his side, her expression calm and collected as if she hadn't just saved his life. Her presence, so unassuming yet undeniably powerful, seemed to fill the cabin. There was a moment of stunned silence as the other passengers, still in shock from the events, tried to process what had just happened. The flight attendants glanced at each other, unsure of how to respond to the little girl who had performed what no one on board could have imagined. The billionaire, still struggling to catch his breath, stared at her with an expression of disbelief mixed with gratitude. "You saved me," he said, his voice a little shaky. "I don't know how to thank you." The girl simply nodded, her hands folded neatly in front of her, her eyes never leaving his. She wasn't there for praise or recognition. She had done what needed to be done, instinctively and without hesitation. The billionaire's mind raced as he realized the weight of the situation. This young girl, the maid's daughter, had just saved his life with her knowledge and quick thinking. He had lived a life surrounded by wealth, power, and influence, but nothing had prepared him for this moment. He had thought he was invincible, but in reality, he was just as vulnerable as anyone else. The billionaire looked at the flight attendants, who were now quietly working around him, and then turned back to the girl. "What's your name?" he asked softly, his voice filled with sincerity. "Clara," she answered simply, her tone even and composed. "Clara, you're extraordinary," he said, his words carrying more weight than she could have imagined. Clara didn't respond. She didn't need to. The gratitude in his voice spoke volumes. The plane continued its course through the sky, but the atmosphere inside had shifted dramatically. The other passengers, who had previously ignored Clara as just another invisible servant, now watched her with a newfound respect. They saw her not just as a maid's daughter, but as a life-saving hero. For the rest of the flight, the billionaire stayed mostly quiet, reflecting on the incredible turn of events. He couldn't stop thinking about Clara, about how someone so young, so unassuming, could have the wisdom and the courage to act in the face of danger. As the jet began its descent, the billionaire turned to the flight attendant and said, "Make sure Clara has a seat in the front for the rest of the flight. She deserves to be treated with respect." The flight attendant, who had never seen this side of the billionaire, nodded respectfully. Clara had already shown more composure than most adults. When the plane touched down and the passengers disembarked, the billionaire was the first to speak up. "Clara," he said, his tone warm, "I would like to offer you something. You've changed my life today, and I won't forget that. If you ever need anything at all, don't hesitate to ask." Clara stood there, stunned by his offer. She had never expected anything in return for what she had done. All she had done was what she had been taught: step up in a crisis and help those in need. But the billionaire's words left her speechless. She had never imagined a moment like this, never thought that a single action could change so much. The billionaire's offer was genuine, but Clara simply shook her head. "I don't need anything," she said softly. "I only did what anyone would have done." But the billionaire insisted, "No, Clara, you saved my life today. You showed me what true bravery is. You deserve more than just my thanks." As the conversation ended, Clara couldn't help but wonder how one moment could change everything. She had always lived in the shadows, invisible to those around her. But today, she was seen. Today, she had made a difference. And as the billionaire turned and walked away, he glanced back, his eyes filled with admiration. He knew that he would never forget the maid's daughter who had saved his life. As Clara watched him disappear into the crowd, she felt a sense of pride she had never known before. She had proven that even the smallest voice can change the world. The billionaire's offer had left Clara in a state of disbelief, but she had been taught to never expect anything in return for doing what was right. She hadn't saved him for recognition or rewards, but something had shifted inside her, a recognition of her own worth. The rest of the flight passed in a strange silence. The billionaire, now fully recovered, spent the remaining hours in deep conversation with his business associates, but he often glanced toward Clara, still seated in the back of the cabin, an air of gratitude lingering in his gaze. When they finally landed, the billionaire made sure that Clara was escorted off the plane first, treated like a guest rather than a servant. It was a small gesture, but to Clara, it felt like the world had shifted on its axis. As the passengers disembarked, Clara quietly walked toward the exit, unsure of what to expect next. She hadn't wanted anything from the billionaire, yet here she was, being treated like a person of value. Her mind raced with questions. What was next for her? What had changed? She had never been seen in this way before. As she stepped into the terminal, the billionaire caught up to her, walking alongside her with a calm, steady presence. "Clara," he said, his voice kind and respectful. "I have something I need to ask you. Something personal." Clara turned to him, slightly taken aback. She had never imagined being in a situation like this, talking to the billionaire who had, just hours ago, been on the brink of death. "Yes," she replied cautiously. "You saved my life," he began. and I want to ensure that this moment doesn't go unnoticed. You're more than just the maid's daughter. You're someone who has the potential to do great things. I'd like to offer you a scholarship, full tuition, anywhere you want to go." Clara blinked, surprised by his words. A scholarship? Her? She had never thought she would have the opportunity to attend college, let alone study in a prestigious institution. The thought seemed so far out of reach. I don't know what to say," Clara stammered. The billionaire smiled warmly. "You don't need to say anything now. Just think about it. It's yours if you want it." Clara stood there, processing the offer. She hadn't been offered a chance to have her dreams come true before. Her family's financial struggles had always kept her grounded in reality. But now, a door was opening. She didn't know if she was ready to walk through it, but for the first time in her life, she felt like she had a choice. As she made her way home that evening, Clara's mind swirled with possibilities. Could she really go to college? Could she make something of herself, beyond just being the invisible girl in the background? The next day, she couldn't stop thinking about the billionaire's offer. She shared it with her mother, who was just as stunned. "This is more than we could have ever imagined," her mother said, her voice trembling with emotion. "But Clara, it's up to you. If you want to take this opportunity, you'll have to work hard, like you always have. But it's yours for the taking." Clara's heart swelled with pride. She had never been given a choice like this before. It was as if the universe had turned in her favor, as if everything she had worked for had finally led her to this moment. She knew she had the ability to do something incredible. She just needed to believe it. As Clara stood in front of the mirror that night, she looked at herself differently. She wasn't just the maid's daughter anymore. She was someone who had the potential to change her life and make a difference. And with that realization, she made a decision. She would take the scholarship. She would go to college, pursue her dreams, and prove to herself and the world that she could achieve anything. The billionaire's words echoed in her mind. "You're more than just the maid's daughter. You're someone who has the potential to do great things." She wasn't sure exactly what those great things would be, but one thing was certain: her journey was just beginning. As Clara walked into the college campus for the first time, she could hardly believe it. The grand buildings, the ivy-covered walls, and the buzzing energy of students rushing between classes felt like a dream. She had spent years watching her classmates from the sidelines, never imagining she would be one of them. And yet, here she was. The scholarship the billionaire had offered her wasn't just a ticket to education. It was a lifeline, an opportunity that would change the course of her entire life. Clara had spent the summer preparing, attending orientation, and adjusting to her new life. Her mother had been supportive but nervous, reminding Clara that this was just the beginning, and she would have to work harder than ever to prove herself. But Clara was determined. She had already proven that she could do extraordinary things, and now it was time to make her mark in the world. On her first day, Clara was still adjusting to the sheer size of the campus. She walked through the halls, her head held high, trying to ignore the feeling of being out of place. But it didn't take long before she began to feel more comfortable. Her professors were welcoming, the students were kind, and her classes were challenging in the best way. Clara threw herself into her studies. She wasn't the smartest person in the room, but she worked harder than anyone else. She spent hours in the library, studying late into the night, making up for the years of missed opportunities. Slowly but surely, her efforts paid off. Clara's grades soared, and soon, she found herself at the top of her class. But as she succeeded academically, she still struggled with the emotional weight of her journey. She missed her mother, missed the quiet, simple life they had shared. She missed the comfort of knowing who she was in a world where she now felt like a stranger. One evening, Clara received a call from the billionaire. It had been months since she last spoke to him, and hearing his voice again brought back memories of the day she had saved his life. "Clara," he said, his voice warm and kind, "I've been following your progress. I'm proud of you. You're doing amazing things, and I want to make sure you have everything you need to succeed." Clara felt a lump in her throat. She had never expected to hear from him again. "Thank you," she whispered, unable to put into words how much his support meant to her. "I don't know what I would have done without your help." The billionaire paused for a moment, then said, "Clara, you're destined for greatness. I know you're not doing this for recognition, but I want to make sure you know that you are seen. You are valued. You are not just the maid's daughter anymore. You're someone who has the power to change the world." Clara felt her heart swell with emotion. The words she had longed to hear from others were finally spoken to her. She was no longer invisible. "I don't know if I'll ever be able to repay you for everything you've done for me," she said, her voice trembling with gratitude. "But I promise I will never forget how you believed in me when no one else did." "Clara," he said softly, "you don't need to repay me. Just promise me one thing. Never forget that you are capable of anything. The world is yours for the taking." As the conversation ended, Clara felt a sense of calm wash over her. For the first time, she understood that she wasn't just surviving anymore. She was thriving. And in that moment, Clara made a promise to herself. She would keep pushing forward, keep fighting for her dreams, and one day, she would show the world what she was capable of. The path ahead was still long, and there would be obstacles, but she was no longer afraid. She had already overcome the greatest challenge of all, believing in herself. Clara's journey through college had been a whirlwind. She was learning things she had never dreamed of, and slowly, she was starting to believe in her own potential. She had found a sense of belonging among her peers, who were starting to recognize her not just as the maid's daughter, but as someone with intelligence, determination, and ambition. But even as she excelled academically, Clara knew there was still more to be done. She had made a promise to herself that she would never stop striving for greatness, but now, she also realized that she could not do it alone. The pressure was mounting, and with every passing day, she felt the weight of her family's expectations and her own dreams. One evening, as Clara sat in her dorm room, staring at her textbooks, a message popped up on her phone. It was from the billionaire. Clara had not expected to hear from him in a while, but there was something about his messages that always made her feel grounded. "Clara," the message began, "I've been following your progress closely, and I'm so proud of the woman you've become. I want to offer you something, an internship at my company. It's an incredible opportunity, and I believe you're ready for the challenge." Clara's heart skipped a beat. An internship at his company? This was it, the chance to prove herself in the real world, to take everything she had learned and apply it in a setting where her ideas would be valued. She could already picture herself walking into the office, meeting the powerful people who would shape her future, and making her mark. But with the excitement came doubt. Was she ready? Would she be able to balance the pressure of an internship with her demanding studies? She had always been a hard worker, but this felt different. The weight of her dreams felt heavier now, and she wasn't sure if she could carry it. But Clara had always risen to the challenge. She had proven that she could handle anything life threw her way, and this was no different. She took a deep breath and replied, "I would be honored. Thank you for believing in me." The next few weeks were a blur of preparation. Clara had to attend interviews, prepare her resume, and adjust her schedule to fit in the internship. It was exhausting, but she was determined. The day of her first day at the company, Clara woke up early, her nerves buzzing with anticipation. She wore a professional suit, something she had never imagined wearing, and as she walked to the office, she felt a mixture of excitement and fear. When she entered the building, she was struck by the luxury of it all: polished marble floors, glass walls with stunning views, and the hum of busy professionals walking past. But Clara kept her head high, reminding herself that she belonged there just as much as anyone else. As she walked into the conference room for her first meeting, she was greeted by the billionaire himself. "Clara," he said, with a smile that made her feel like she truly belonged, "I'm glad you're here. This is your chance to show the world what you can do." Clara smiled back, feeling a surge of confidence. She was no longer just the maid's daughter. She was Clara, someone with the power to change the world. She had taken the first step toward realizing her dreams, and she wasn't going to stop now. The days that followed were a whirlwind of meetings, presentations, and hard work. Clara was pushed to her limits, but she thrived. She learned quickly, impressing her colleagues with her insight and determination. And when she presented her first project to the board of executives, the billionaire himself was the first to stand and applaud. "Well done, Clara," he said, his voice filled with pride. "You've proven that anything is possible when you believe in yourself." Clara's heart swelled with pride. She had done it. She had shown the world, and herself, that she was capable of achieving anything. As the days passed, Clara realized that the life she had once dreamed of was now within her reach. She had earned the respect of the people around her, and she had proven to herself that her potential was limitless. She had taken the opportunities given to her, and turned them into something extraordinary. And now, the world was hers for the taking. As Clara continued to grow within the company, her success seemed to follow her everywhere she went. She had proved her worth in the office, and now, she was beginning to see the fruits of her labor. The internship had turned into a full-time position, and soon, she was becoming an integral part of the team. The billionaire had kept his promise, mentoring her and providing guidance. But Clara knew that it was her own hard work and dedication that had brought her this far. She had earned every success she achieved. But even as Clara was finding her place, there was still an underlying feeling that she had to prove herself to everyone who had doubted her in the past. The days were long, and the work was demanding. Yet Clara never faltered. Every project she took on was met with precision and passion. But in the back of her mind, the doubts lingered. Would she always be seen as the maid's daughter? Would she ever truly be accepted in the elite circles that now surrounded her? As the weeks passed, Clara's accomplishments began to speak for themselves. She had contributed to major projects, one of which brought in millions of dollars in revenue for the company. She was respected, not just for her intelligence, but for her relentless drive. Yet, as much as she was thriving professionally, her personal life began to feel more complicated. Clara had grown close to her co-workers, many of whom had become friends, but there was still a feeling that she was always a step behind. One evening, as Clara was preparing to leave the office, the billionaire called her into his office. "Clara," he said with a smile, "I want you to know that I've been following your progress closely. You've done exceptional work. You've proven yourself as an invaluable part of the team. But I think there's one more step for you." Clara, always humble, looked at him curiously. "What do you mean?" "I want to offer you a partnership in the company," he said, his tone calm but filled with pride. Clara's heart raced. A partnership? She had never imagined such an opportunity. She had worked so hard just to get a foot in the door, and now she was being given a chance to share in the success of the company. It felt like the culmination of everything she had worked for. "Are you sure?" Clara asked, her voice a little shaky. "I'm ready," he replied. "I know. You have the skills, the knowledge, and the drive. You've earned this." Clara stood there, overwhelmed. It was hard to believe that just a few years ago, she was a quiet, invisible girl, someone no one thought would amount to much. And now, she was about to become a partner in a major corporation. It was a surreal moment, but Clara knew that this was only the beginning. As she walked out of the office that evening, her mind was racing. She had never imagined this for herself. It was more than just success. It was validation of everything she had always believed about herself. She had taken every setback, every moment of doubt, and turned it into fuel for her success. She had proven to herself, and to the world, that she was more than the circumstances she was born into. She was Clara, the woman who had the strength to overcome any obstacle, the intelligence to lead, and the heart to make a real difference. The billionaire's words echoed in her mind as she stepped out into the night. "You've earned this." And Clara knew, deep in her heart, that she had. The future was bright, and she was ready to take on whatever challenges lay ahead. The path she had carved was hers to walk, and she would walk it with confidence, courage, and the knowledge that she had built something incredible from nothing. Clara's life had transformed in ways she never thought possible. The partnership in the company had solidified her place in the business world, and she was finally beginning to feel like she belonged. But with success came new challenges. Clara was now balancing the responsibilities of being a partner in a multi-million-dollar company with the pressures of maintaining her academic excellence. Every day felt like a race, and every decision she made seemed to carry the weight of her future. She could feel the eyes of the company's board members on her. They were waiting to see if she was truly capable of holding her own among them. The pressure was intense, but Clara had faced pressure before. She had risen above it. She knew that this was her moment to prove that she could handle anything. As Clara navigated her new role, she began to notice the subtle changes in how others treated her. No longer the maid's daughter, she was now someone who commanded respect. People sought her opinion, valued her insight, and even came to her for guidance. The world she had once felt so distant from was now within her reach, and she was starting to feel like she had finally earned her place among the elite. But even as Clara's career soared, her personal life began to take on a new dimension. She had spent so many years focused on her education and her career that she hadn't given much thought to relationships. Now, she found herself thinking more about her family and friends. She missed her mother more than she ever realized. Her mother, who had sacrificed so much to give Clara the opportunity to succeed, was still back at home, working tirelessly to support them both. Clara knew she had to find a way to give back to her mother, to show her how much she appreciated everything she had done for her. One day, after a long day at the office, Clara called her mother. "Mom, how are you?" Clara asked, her voice filled with affection. "I'm doing okay, honey. Just busy with work as usual." "How about you?" her mother replied. Clara could hear the exhaustion in her mother's voice, and it broke her heart. "Mom, I want to do something special for you. I've been given so many opportunities, and I want to make sure you get to enjoy some of the rewards. I'm coming home for the weekend, and we're going to take a break." "You deserve it," Clara said, her words filled with determination. Her mother was silent for a moment, and Clara could hear the soft sniffle on the other end of the line. "You don't have to do that, sweetheart," her mother said, her voice trembling with emotion. "I'm just proud of you. You've come so far." Clara smiled, her heart swelling with love. "I know, Mom, but you've always been there for me. Now it's my turn to take care of you." The weekend came quickly, and Clara returned home to spend time with her mother. They spent the days together, laughing, reminiscing, and enjoying the simple pleasures of life. It was a much-needed break from the fast-paced world Clara had entered. As they sat together one evening, Clara's mother looked at her with a proud smile. "You've made me so proud, Clara. You're everything I ever dreamed you would be and more." Clara's eyes welled up with tears. "You're the reason I am where I am today, Mom. I promise I won't stop. I'll keep pushing forward, and one day, we'll have everything we've ever dreamed of." Her mother reached out and hugged Clara tightly. "I believe in you, Clara. You can do anything." As Clara sat there with her mother, surrounded by love and warmth, she realized that success wasn't just about the achievements or the recognition. It was about the people who had been with her every step of the way, the people who believed in her when no one else did. And with that realization, Clara knew that no matter how far she went, she would never forget the journey that had brought her here. The journey that had started with a small, unnoticed girl on a plane and had turned into something truly remarkable. She was ready for whatever came next, because she had already proven that she could achieve anything. As Clara's career continued to climb, she found herself at a crossroads. She had worked hard to get to this point, and yet, the success she had dreamed of for so long didn't feel like enough. The promotions, the recognition, and even the partnership she had earned at the company had given her a sense of accomplishment, but something was missing. For all her achievements, Clara began to realize that she wasn't truly fulfilled. The more time she spent in the high-powered world of business, the more she realized how much she longed for the simplicity and connection she had once had with her family. She had been so focused on proving herself to the world that she had lost sight of the things that truly mattered. Clara took a week off from work to visit her mother, who was still living in their small apartment. It was a quiet weekend, full of moments of reflection and reconnection. Her mother, always proud of her, looked at Clara with a gentle smile. "You've come so far, honey," she said, as they sat together, sipping tea on the porch. "But don't forget who you are and where you came from." Clara nodded, feeling the weight of her mother's words. She had become so consumed by success that she had neglected the values that had shaped her. As they spent time together, Clara began to feel the sense of peace and belonging she had been missing. Her mother's unconditional love reminded her of the importance of family, compassion, and giving back. She realized that the life she had built, while impressive, wasn't everything. The relationships she had nurtured and the impact she could make on others were what truly mattered. As Clara returned to the city, she felt a renewed sense of purpose. She had reached the pinnacle of her career, but now, she wanted to use her success to help others. She decided to start a foundation dedicated to helping underprivileged children gain access to education. It was something that had always been close to her heart. After all, it was education that had given her the opportunity to change her life, and now she wanted to pay that forward. Clara worked tirelessly on the foundation, pouring her heart and soul into it. She spoke at schools, raised money, and mentored children who were just like the young girl she once was, overlooked, underestimated, but full of potential. The foundation quickly gained traction, and Clara's impact on the community began to grow. She became a symbol of hope for those who thought they had no chance. Her story of success and perseverance inspired countless others to believe in their own potential. But despite all the accolades and recognition, Clara never lost sight of what truly mattered. She still visited her mother every weekend, reminding herself of the humble beginnings that had shaped her. Clara knew that the journey she had taken was just one part of her story. The real legacy she wanted to leave behind was not measured in wealth or titles, but in the lives she touched and the hearts she changed. Years later, as Clara looked back on everything she had accomplished, she was filled with gratitude. She had achieved so much more than she had ever imagined. But it was the moments of kindness, the relationships she had built, and the impact she had made on others that mattered the most. Clara had proven that with hard work, determination, and a heart full of compassion, anyone could overcome their circumstances and create a life worth living. She had come full circle, and as she stood before the children her foundation had helped, Clara knew that her journey was far from over. She had not only changed her own life, but she had given others the opportunity to do the same. As Clara stood on the stage at the Foundation's annual gala, surrounded by hundreds of people who had supported her work, she couldn't help but reflect on how far she had come. She had started as a quiet, unnoticed girl on a plane, unsure of where life would take her, and now she was standing before an audience of influential figures, sharing the story of her journey. Her life had transformed in ways she never thought possible. But even as she basked in the success, Clara knew that this moment was just one chapter in a much larger story. The applause from the crowd echoed in her ears, but it was the faces of the children she had helped, the families whose lives she had touched, that truly filled her heart with pride. As Clara spoke about the Foundation's work, how they had helped provide scholarships, mentorship, and resources to children in need, she realized that this was her true legacy. It wasn't the title of being a partner at a multi-billion-dollar company or the recognition she had received in the business world. It was the difference she had made in the lives of those who had once felt invisible, just like she had. The applause continued, but Clara's mind drifted back to her mother, the woman who had sacrificed everything for her to have a chance at a better life. Her mother had always told her to give back, to never forget where she came from. And now, Clara understood that giving back wasn't just about money or accolades. It was about changing lives, offering opportunities, and being the light for others who felt lost in the darkness. After the event, Clara returned home, her heart full. She visited her mother, as she did every weekend, but this time it felt different. They sat together, just as they had years ago, sipping tea on the porch. "Mom," Clara began, her voice filled with emotion, "we've done it. Together, we've created something that will change lives." Her mother smiled, the same proud smile Clara had seen a million times before. "I always knew you were destined for greatness," she said. "But now, you're doing more than just succeeding. You're helping others succeed too." Clara nodded, her eyes welling up with tears. "I couldn't have done any of this without you, Mom. You're the reason I never gave up. You're the reason I believe in myself." Her mother reached out, pulling Clara into a tight embrace. "I'm so proud of you, Clara. You've become everything I hoped for and more." That evening, as Clara looked out over the city skyline, she felt a deep sense of peace. She had accomplished everything she had set out to do, and yet, she knew her journey was far from over. There would always be more children to help, more lives to touch, and more dreams to fulfill. But Clara no longer feared the future. She had proven that with hard work, determination, and the belief that anything was possible, anyone could overcome their past and create a better tomorrow. She had already changed her own life. Now, she was changing the world, one person at a time. And as she stood there, looking toward the horizon, Clara knew that this was just the beginning of something even bigger, something that would live on long after she was gone. Her legacy, built on the foundation of hope and compassion, would continue to inspire future generations to believe in themselves and the power of giving back. In this inspiring story of perseverance and success, a young girl, once invisible to the world, rises from humble beginnings to make an extraordinary impact. From saving a billionaire's life mid-flight to becoming a partner in a multi-million-dollar company, this narrative echoes the power of hard work, determination, and belief in oneself. The girl's journey unfolds through challenges, opportunities, and transformative moments, showing how even those with the smallest beginnings can achieve greatness. As the story progresses, the focus shifts from individual success to the importance of giving back, as the protagonist starts a foundation to help underprivileged children access education. This story is a powerful reminder that even in the face of adversity, dreams can be realized and lives can be changed. These millionaire stories show the incredible potential of ordinary people and how they can defy expectations to create a better future for themselves and others. The girl who once thought she was invisible proves that with persistence and heart, anyone can achieve what they set out to do. This journey is not just about personal success, but also about making a meaningful difference in the world, which is exactly what this story represents. In these millionaire stories, success isn't just measured by wealth, but by the lives touched and the impact made on those who need it most.